Capitol, room number 1. We are about to start. Please. The name of this session will be Music During Class. And I'd like to say right now that most of the things, or a lot of the things we tell you, that you'll be able to use all the time, not just during class, but we'll start off talking about the class and go a little further, and we hope we give everybody something that will help you. Say again? Yes, thank you. I'd like to introduce our panelists, first of all, from Portland, Oregon, owner-producer of Chinook Records and Hodowner Records, Daryl Clendenin. And from the Houston area, what's the name of the town? Washington? Montgomery. I knew it was one of those big cities like that. Montgomery, Texas, on Rhythm Records, Mr. Pat Barbour. I'm Darryl McMillan, Ranch House Records, and we thank you very much for coming into the session this morning. First thing I'd like to say is none of us are music professionals, so all you educated music teachers out there, we expect you to participate. We would like to have as many questions from you and as much participation as you can give us. Ask us any questions you'd like. We're going to all talk to you just a few minutes, and like I said, keep your questions in mind, and then we'll just discuss whatever you'd like to talk about. I'm not real fast on my feet. I don't think all that fast. I'm not like Daryl over here. He's quick. I want to tell you this about Daryl, and then we'll go ahead. No, the Daryl from Washington I'm talking about now. We were down in one of the lounges last night, and it was sort of quiet at the time, and Daryl walked up. There was a real nice-looking young lady there on the bar stool, and he sat down by this lady, and he said, could I buy you a drink? She said, a motel? He said, no, I just want to buy you a drink. She said, you want to take me to a motel? He says, no. So he just sort of walked off and went over to the corner and sat down in a booth. A few minutes later, she walked over to him and sort of whispered in his ear. She said, listen, several of my friends are here, and said, we're just part of a psychology experiment. And just we want to see how people react to different situations. He looked at her and said, $100? I'm not that fast, but we'll try to respond to any of your questions as best we can. First of all, I'm sure most of us realize how fortunate we are to have the music that we have and the amplifiers and equipment that we have to use with our classes and our dances. And those of you that have been in a while know that many years ago you either had to have a band with you, or some people had a person that would play a fiddle or something of this nature. And our music was not near up to what it is today. But anyway, I have a friend here that I brought in that started calling about 22, 23 years ago. And I'm going to let him get up and demonstrate how he called for his classes and for his clubs when he first started calling, because they had no music at all. And he just called, and the people danced to what he was calling. And I'm going to tie this in later on with what I'm talking about in music and calling to the music. So all the way from Tokyo, Japan, I'd like for you to make welcome Matt Asanuma. Matt started calling over 20 years ago, like I said, and at that time he had no music at all. So what I'd like for you to do is just sort of count and feel the rhythm as Matt calls, just some simple pattern. Okay? Matt Asanuma. Thank you. Right here. Okay, go. Just like that. Go. Just like that.
Hey, bow to your partner and bow to the corner. All join hand and make a big thing. Circle to the left, round the goal. Walk all around to the left-hand lady. Now see so play to the toe to animal left at the you left hand. Partner like go light to left hand. Now big hula up and little one down to meet your girl promenade. Promenade go land that turn home you go now heads. Dance up to the middle, come on back. Now square through four hands all the way around. Those side will be the outside to make a ocean babe. Now swing through, boys don't light. Now couple circulate, just read and deed of heads or two. Right or left through, turn the skull. Now square through, three hands down, when you done traded by. Left down and man, here we go, right or left flank.
Thank you very much. Arigato gozaimasu. Thank you. Now, as you were sitting there listening to Matt, I'm sure you could feel the rhythm. You could pat your foot. Okay, and the point I want to make later on, I'm going to show you some very basic parts of music. I'm sure most of you can do this with practice, and I'm sure most of you know the parts of music which we're going to talk about. But what I want to get over in the entire presentation is this. You take the music, you take your calling, you take the people's dancing, and you put it all together. And if you can make it blend together in a smooth rhythm, it'll be much easier for the people to dance. They will feel a lot better, and everybody will have a better time. So right now, I feel like a lot of us get carried away with beautiful music, a lot of real pretty stuff, and fancy choreography and all this. And for our class, during class, I personally feel that we should keep it very simple and let these people dance, not run and not march and not wrestle. They need to be able to dance. After you show them the basic choreography, then the thing is to get the rhythm and the music together. So I've got a couple of records, and I'm sorry I'll have to turn around the amplifiers behind me. I'll play just parts of these 2 or 3 records to show you what I'm talking about. It's very basic. I'm sure you know what I mean. First thing I'm going to show you, of course, is the bass beat. We all dance. We should put our foot down on the bass beat. I'm just going to play a short portion here, and I'll be adjusting the machine so that you can hear the bass beat. Now you hear the bass beat? This is what we all should put our foot down to. That's the basic part of a square dance record that we put our foot down to. Boom, 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 boom. Okay? It's on that record, but I will use a different record. I'm going to show you basically the same thing. It's a bass beat, but it has a real light upbeat. So we put our foot down on the bass beat. We're going to pick it up on the upbeat. Different piece of music. Right here. Hear the upbeat, the bass, and the upbeat. Make sure you put your foot down, pick it up, down. Very light. The people move real well. It's also on that record, but I'm going to change. I'd like to show you a record now with a lot of what we call fill and some very distinct melody. You will hear I'm not sure where I'll put the record down, but probably a guitar playing the melody line, which you can follow and you can sing. But this has a violin or fiddle. We use a fiddle more than a violin, I think. It'll do a lot of fill, and this gives us a real light feeling. In addition to the down and the up, it just makes you feel sort of light and floating along, I think. Fiddle in the background. Got the bass beat, has an upbeat on the drum, has a lot of violin feel. This gives the dancers a real light feeling. Now, if we can take these 3 things, put them together, the bass beat, the upbeat, the real light feeling. Okay, for the tape we have to repeat the question. Gentleman asked what portion of the music gave you the light feel. Okay, the bass beat makes you put your foot down. The upbeat, either on a drum or a guitar, you understand what I mean by upbeat? Upbeat? All right, that gives you a feeling of picking your foot up. But instead of just walking around with a down, up, down, up, down, up, this particular one had a fiddle playing a little It's probably on the beat of the downbeat and the upbeat, but it's a little extra in between there. And by a light feel, I mean it just makes you feel sort of happy. you don't feel like you're marching or walking, and it just sort of picks you up. This is my opinion. But I think the fiddle, and most records that we use now, there's a banjo will do the same thing. Some people do it with guitars. But it's just extra licks other than your downbeat and your upbeat. That answer your question? Okay. Yes, sir, question. How would you use a syncopation? I'm not sure I understand a syncopation. What you mean by that? Give me an example. With his calling, with his voice. Okay, I'm not sure how Dick would do this, but okay, yeah, I think that's what I was going to say. I think it's putting the emphasis on the offbeat. If you get really working in with a piece of music, you can go bow to the partner, the corner, two, and a circle to the left, go round. You give an emphasis to the upbeat. That's the part that picks your foot up, and as you said, pats them on the fanny. Okay, other questions? All right. Of course, you have to consider the tempo and the timing, and I want to mention that. The tempo, of course, is how fast you're playing your music. Most of our records are designed or recorded to be played between 128 and 132 beats per minute. Some records would feel a little better faster, very few. If you get under 128 beats per minute, some songs may sound real good, but most would feel a little bit draggy. Okay, I just want to make a slight differentiation between tempo and timing, and I'm sure you know this, but of course the timing is how many beats you're going to give to each particular call, your choreography. Like if you say head square through, you should wait approximately 8 beats, I think. You don't say head square through and do a right and left through like that. You give them enough time. That's timing. When you put your calls, your commands in there, that's your timing. The tempo is the speed of the record, how fast you're playing it. And like I said, we shoot for around 130 beats per minute. Okay. Now, the main thing that I feel that we should do, particularly in class, and it works real well with dancers in general, is to blend all these things together. You get that bass beat going, you get that upbeat going, and then if you can get your voice, I think as you said, in sync with the music, and you really work at giving your commands on the beat of the music and not just saying them as you think about them. If you put emphasis on that first syllable that you say, like bow to the partner, bow to the corner, you join hands, circle to the left, give your emphasis on the beat of the music. If you get that together with the bass beat and the upbeat, and the dancers get to moving with that, that's what gives them a real good feel. That's the basic part of our square dance music. One other thing I want to consider, since I'm from Florida, we have an awful lot of retired people. I'm sure some of you do too. You need to consider this in your timing and your tempo, and the age of the people you're calling for in general makes a big difference. Some people can hear bass, some cannot, and some can hear treble, and some cannot. So many times people come up and tell you your music's too loud or it's not loud enough. It may not be really the volume, but what you're putting out there, such as bass or treble. People's ears change over the years, and that makes a big difference. But the point I want to make again is to get all this stuff together, particularly in your class. Get your bass beat, the upbeat, together with what you're saying, in sync with what you're saying, and it'll make your dancers dance a lot easier and a lot better. Any other questions right now? Yes, sir. That's a good question. The question is, do you differentiate between the tempo that you start teaching a class and the tempo that you call for regular dancers? Okay, I'm going to give you my opinion, and that's my opinion only, and some of you may differ, and we'll welcome your comments. Okay, for teaching class, I like when I'm talking about brand new, when they're learning the moves, they're concentrating on learning how to do a particular movement. I start with my tempo a little bit slower, but I really differentiate more with the timing. I give them more time to do a move and see where they are. If you really wanted to look at it, it would be a start and stop type thing. In other words, I tell them to head square through, and I wait until they see that they have finished it. I'm talking about in very first teaching this thing. And then, after they know what to do when you say head square through, then you should really concentrate to get it on the beat. But now, people in class, they've got an awful lot to think about. They've got to hear the music. They've got to learn how to walk, and then learn the call. I'm saying once they learn how to do the particular movement you're teaching, then you should concentrate on calling on time and with the proper number of beats and at your standard tempo that you would call a dance. So when they're not stopping and worrying about what they're doing, then be sure that they dance with the music. Okay, and one other thing, you should really always leave them dancing to the music. Don't leave them struggling, okay, with the music. Any other questions? Sure. Would one of you guys want to comment on the differentiation between tempo between class? Would you like to comment on it? Okay. 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 I'm saying start slower until they learn the movement. After they learn the movement, then speed it up. Now, I'm not talking about every 2 or 3 minutes now. I'm talking about you might run a record at a slower speed until they learn it. Okay. See if that's on.
1, 2, check.
I had decided in teaching class that because they do have a problem, keeping up with the beat of the music, to start them off at a slower tempo, and then after they learn the movement to pick it up. But the problem I ran into was when I picked up the tempo, they accused me of calling too fast. They had gotten used to dancing at the slower tempo. So now what I do is change the tempo very quickly. In other words, not stay on that teaching tempo for very long at all, just long enough for them to catch the idea of the figure and then move it up a little bit. But the reason I asked the question was to see if I could get that criticism and see if I was confirming what I thought I had found out. I saw a nod over there. I got one confirmation of it.
Let me ask the entire group. How many of you think you should teach, right from the very start, whatever you're teaching, teach at the same tempo you call? Okay, just roughly, all right. Now, how many of you think you should teach slower and then speed up? Okay, the crowd response is approximately 50 to 50. Okay, so we're looking about half and half. Yes, what Keith said is if you teach at the same tempo that you're going to call at, you have to give them a little more time on your timing. But still, no matter what they're doing, whatever tempo you have that record at, that's what tempo they should be stepping at, no matter if they're doing the move or not. Yes, sir. Yes, let me repeat that. The gentleman said that if you use a slower tempo, he feels like the people appreciate it more. Right? Right. The very first point I said, I believe, no matter what tempo, they've got to be with the music or it's not going to be dancing. They've got to be with that music or it's not going to be dancing. Any other questions before we go on? Okay. From Portland, Oregon, man with all the technical answers, Daryl Clendenin. Here he comes.
Technical answers. You're taller than I am.
I'm doing what I do best right now. As Daryl said, we were in the casino out here last night. He was there. He saw it happen. He knows it's true. What he didn't say was that he was about half snockered. I went to help him back up to his room. He could hardly stand. He was hanging over one shoulder, walking down the hall. Stopped me. He said, Daryl, he said, you're passionate. I said, for crying out loud, McMillan. I said, there might be people listening. Walked a little ways further, and he stopped me and he said, Daryl, he said, you're passionate. I said, crying on his sakes. I said, cut that out. You don't want to get a reputation like that. Daryl, you're passionate. My room is back there. This is not going to be very technical. I'm not a technical person. Okay. I do want your help. I want you to stop and think for a minute. Think of yourself as a non-dancer. Maybe somebody who has done a little bit of square dancing in grammar school, or the only other exposure that you've had to square dancing or square dance music is what you've seen on television or seen in the movies. And you're getting ready to go to your first square dance class. Somebody's invited you. Just what do you expect the music to be like? We all know what it's like, actually, right? We know that it's not anything like what a lot of people seem to think it's like. But when you walk in that door on that first night, expecting to hear Up Jump the Devil, or Turkey in the Straw, or Oh Johnny O, or something like that, and you hear disco, just what are you going to feel about the whole thing? Is it good or bad? I don't know. I have a funny feeling that maybe the way that we use our music these days, we're trying to push too much variety too fast into it, which is what I'm talking about. And I'm going to ask some questions, and I hope I get some answers. Do you think possibly that we would do well to keep the music on a traditional nature the first few lessons, or at least the first night? You don't have to agree. Okay. Mark Nichols, you had something? Can you explain why?
People come into your lessons, and they're listening to the radio every day. Even on the country stations, they're not playing Turkey in the Straw. They're not playing a version of Oh Johnny O. They're listening to the pop labels that are coming off. And we should keep right in line with what they're hearing on the radio, what they're used to, and then go from there.
Okay. I can't disagree with that totally, except I do feel that if you take a look at our mainstream basic list, it starts with traditional figures. It starts with the movements that have been around since, Lord knows, well, I guess the reason they are the traditional figures because nobody knows how long they've been there. I feel that maybe for the sake of comfort for somebody just stepping in off the street, that you might be better off at least the first part of the evening maybe to give them what they expect. Don't hit them in the face with something brand new. I think we have an obligation to show them the variety that's within the music, but I think you should approach it slowly. What I'm saying is, I guess probably more than anything else, don't blow your whole roll on the first time out of the bag. You wouldn't call everything that you know on the first tip. I don't think that you should try to wrap everything that you have musically up in the first dance. Take your time. Let the dancers grow slowly, maybe, and the same progression, maybe the same type of progression that you would use in teaching your square dance basics, put that same type of a program to work for your music. You'll get through it. I think a whole lot of the problems we're having in teaching beginners these days and calling dances, everything else is just going way too fast through what we have at our disposal. But I thank you for your comment. Of course, we're not talking wholly about dances here, but if there are comments or questions you'd like to ask about the use of music during dances, I hope you do ask them. I have a question. How much variety is really necessary or even desirable in classes? I think that the music can become an old friend. Here again, I want you to think back to your new dancer class when you were learning how to dance. See if you can remember your class at all. I have a great deal of difficulty remembering when I was learning how to square dance. But there are a few things I remember very well about it. I remember the song Little Liza Jane. I remember a song called Love Me Honey Do. I remember a song called You're the Reason. And the reason that I remember these songs is because they were done over and over and over again, enough times that I became very, very familiar with them. They became old friends. And today I can't hardly hear those songs without having a little bit of a feeling of nostalgia, just no matter how simple or anything they were. They're a part of my square dance history, my own personal square dance history. And I think maybe the variety in singing calls, maybe the reason that we've become so adept at changing singing call figures and throwing singing call records on a turntable and applying them to the particular class, that we're using more and more and more and more variety in our things. And do you think maybe we're going to lose out, or maybe we are losing out on part of this familiarity that most of us, I'm sure, had, that we can remember from our square dance classes? Sir? Yes.
Just thinking about variety, first of all, before class, I have found and I have used a variety of music in demonstrations a whole lot, and even to the point where pointing out to the crowd that square dancing is a variety of music. It's golden oldies, it's country western, it's rock, it's a little bit of something for everyone. I think as callers, I know myself at my age, I have a tendency to prefer a certain type of music, which is pretty much golden oldies. But I have to force myself to use a variety in the programs. And I think you can look at the crowd and almost determine what type of music, what type of the variety you should be using that particular evening. I know we have excellent callers in our area that doesn't use a doggone thing but country western. We have other callers that are a little bit rockier. But I think we must put a variety into our programs. I just wanted to mention, Daryl, first of all, that I think it is necessary that we use a variety in demonstrations. Regardless of where you're doing demos, you always have that one thought in mind. We might pick up some dancers from this group, whether it's a mall or a church home or whatever. And I think we do have to force ourselves to use variety. Just my opinion. Thank you.
Like I say, I don't disagree with that. I'm not against the use of variety. Let me illustrate it this way. Once again, you're starting back to school. It's a very, very strange school. You know absolutely nobody. And you wander around the school for the first couple of days and trying to get acquainted. And all of a sudden, you see a familiar face. Your whole attitude changes. If you're like me, anyway. I like people that I know. It's not that I don't meet people and get acquainted very easily, but it does take time to get familiar with them. The longer you stay in school, the more familiar you get with a great deal more people, the more comfortable that you are. I like the variety that we have in music. I think it's very necessary to have that variety. And I agree with you 100% on demonstrations. If you're going out to show what square dancing is, absolutely put all the variety in it that you can. I still think that during class, you're teaching two different things, actually. I ran an experiment with my last year's class, and I used one singing call record for the first 4 or 5 lessons. I used it over and over and over again. Now, that was not the only singing call record that I used, but I did for the first few lessons and the first few movements. I used that record, and I used it again and again and again. Those dancers became very, very comfortable. I know that if I wanted to relax those people, let them have just a good time during the class, and they need that in the class as much or maybe more than they do at a dance, that relaxation. All I had to do was throw that record on. They could have done it without me. Don, I really appreciate you fellas coming up front using the mic.
If you will, to state your name, this is going on the tape. That's...
Thank you. Don Semanek from Whitehorse. I think as callers, if you think back when you first tried to call patter calling, you usually took a record with a strong beat. And I think it's important when you're first using patter records, you use 2 or 3 records with a very good beat, because you always have dancers in there that can't find the beat in a bag. And if you take some of the modern music, it becomes very difficult. And I say, use your variety in your singing calls, your variety of music in your singing calls, but your traditional music or music with a good beat is very important when you're starting to circle to the left and circle to the right. And same with your demonstrations. I think it's a very good idea to take a modern country and western music, but use it in a singing call. And as Daryl said, we're all starting to change our singing calls to patter calls. We're going through 4 different sequences, but you're cheating your dancers a lot of the time. How many of you have got a record that you do well, and when you do it, you just see just about every dancer down on the floor singing it? But if you change that 4 times, you do 4 different figures, they feel a bit cheated. So I say, watch what you're doing when you talk about variety.
Yes, I wish you would.
I'd like to comment that I probably am a relatively new dancer. I started dancing in '69, and that is really more or less what sold me on the activity was the music. I had just, of course, gotten out of high school. I'm a very young person. And anyway, I was more or less brought up in the rock and roll age and all this kind of stuff, and I guess probably in the sophomore or freshman year of high school, kind of started getting hooked on country music, and as a result as well started admiring the bluegrass sound. So, I thought bluegrass was more or less synonymous with square dancing and wanted to go hear that sound, and that's what really impressed me was the music, was the old traditional music. Likewise, in some of the exhibitions that I've done, shopping centers and so forth, I think you might have to agree that, if you put on a good fiddle hoedown with this, fiddle and it's shooting down the mall, that's going to get someone's attention a whole lot more than a rock and roll piece of music does, because people are used to rock and roll. They don't hear the old traditional bluegrass as often as they do the rock and roll. Although it may not be pleasant to them, the bluegrass, I think it definitely gets their attention. And definitely kind of, puts a different frame of mind,
That is square dancing. Square dance music to the person that doesn't usually get exposed to square dancing. You put on a good hoedown, fiddle hoedown, they know what it is. Okay. Are there any other questions on variety or any comments? Go ahead and shoot them at me. Yes, sir.
Hilly Bailey from the state of Maine. It might be interesting, the first of the lessons that we teach up in my neck of the woods, when those people come in to a class, 9 out of 10 of them are going to like music. They're there for that reason. Some of them have dancing, maybe way back. Something they remember. Now, I feel it's up to us to hook them into that class by giving them something they like. Now, on those first 3 nights that we have before we close a class, they're going to get a little traditional square, contra dancing, and a little folk thrown in too. Now, you can't get them on the floor and give them a little folk, a little contra to country western music. I like country western. I play it. Enjoy it very much. So you have to have the variety. And on those 3 nights before we close, they get variety, and I try to hit each one of those and give them something that they're going to like. That gets them.
Right. We'll try to crank it up a little more.
Bob Ernie from Oregon. I like the current availability of music. It's fantastic. We have some excellent mixes of music. We have good rhythms. You can take your choice on what type of music you want to use to fit the mood of the crowd. You can use it to develop a mood in the crowd, but you have to be very selective about what you use for a particular situation, and that is caller judgment, something that you develop over time. When the new person comes in off of the street to their first dance, I think Daryl hit it on the head when he says they're looking for something familiar. The familiarity is that old traditional music. Clear, clean, uncluttered, not an old squeaky fiddle, but a blend of instruments that provides a good basic rhythm. After all, here's a guy up there talking that funny language, do, si, do, and all that sort of thing. And they want something that they can hang on to. Later, and not much later, start adding the other rhythms and systems to it. But record producers, keep on doing what you're doing. Only do it at the same level, please.
We'll try. Here again, I'm not against variety. Producing records, I try to get as much variety in our production as we possibly can. But what I am saying is that when you teach square dancers, the way that you teach them is through repetition, till they become very familiar and very comfortable with the movements. And I don't see any reason why you shouldn't use the same type of programming in your music. Use it until they can become comfortable with it. You're teaching them 2 different things. Have you ever had a dancer say, gee, I got so involved in listening to the music that I didn't hear the commands? It's true. Or the words to the song that I forgot that I was dancing. If you change it every time, that gives them that many more opportunities to stop and listen to the music or listen to the words. On the other hand, if it's a tune that they're familiar with, if they've heard it, they're not so likely to listen to the music. They'll be more likely to listen to your commands. Okay, carrying on. Oh, were there more questions? Sir.
Yeah, I had one. When you had the expression, I spent 1, 2, 3.
Sir, would you come up and put it on the tape, please? Your name?
I'm tired now.
Okay.
Larry McBee, Riverside, California. Now, I was just curious, anymore, callers basically don't cue rounds. We have round dance cuers. So I'm building a musical program and getting the dancers up to point 2, 3, or 4 tips to where I really got them going, and then the round dance cuer comes on and does a goodnight waltz. Normally you can program that type of music along with your program, so I didn't know if anybody had run into that type of an aspect. And is there a communication area that we can work with maybe to not then start all over again to get the dancers musically inspired from that standpoint? Question.
Do I have to answer that? Do I have to answer that? Bill? Thanks, Bill.
Yeah, Bill Cook from Kennewick, Washington. I don't know how many of you have wives that cue round dances or not, My wife does my round dance cueing for me. And to me, this is a benefit for what the question was just asked, because she also helps me set up my singing call program, or my tip programs. And she knows how I'm building my people up. And then she, in turn, sets down and writes her own round dance program. So she's not, if I'm getting them up for redneck, she's not tearing them down with good night. You know, yeah, right. So, and this is one thing, if you can have cooperation like was suggested with your round dance cuer, it's great, and I got it made. I live with her.
I think maybe you should open the lines of communication at the beginning of the dance. I've worked with very, very few round dance cuers that weren't interested in seeing the dance succeed as well as the caller.
I had a question. Are you saying that, those that just came up, are you saying that you teach rounds at the same time you teach the squares, same people?
This is at a dance.
At a dance? Okay, fine. Thank you.
Don Sherlock from Streetsville, Canada. I'm going back to my days in class, which was quite a few years ago, and I think we're maybe confusing variety with repetition. The caller that we took our lessons with, you could set your watch by the records he played. At 8 o'clock he came on with Rubber Dolly, 8:30 was Mojo, and the same thing week after week. And I heard Light in the Window every night for 30 weeks until I could just about scream. So I think you have to get a variety in your program there.
Judgment. Yeah, judgment, absolutely. Okay, anything else on that? Just a couple of other things here, if I could, please. We all know music hath charms to soothe the savage heart, beast. It also has the quality to lift one's spirits, throw a person into a state of depression, make a person angry, excited, happy, or with certain types of people exposed to some types of music, drive them absolutely frantic, which I can testify because of my teenage son. I know what that music does. About 5 minutes of that's it. We feel our music as well as hear it, generally speaking. The rhythm has a great deal to do with what we feel about our music. I think that probably if each of us stopped and thought and played our music after a dance, the songs and the things that we've done, I think we've all taken advantage one way or another of the different types of rhythms, the different types of feel throughout the evening to create a nice program. I would like to play a few records myself, if I could, and hopefully demonstrate, thank you, some of this, the feeling of the music more than anything else, and at the same time, maybe a couple more rhythms that we didn't hear earlier. Boy, I hope I got one in there. This first one, Daryl was talking about music that or the type of rhythm that made you put your foot down, and the afterbeat that picked your foot up. We do have, I didn't listen to this before I came, unfortunately, but I think that this particular record on hi-hat, El Paso City, has a distinct downbeat that makes you want to put your foot down more than it makes you want to pick your foot up. Now, I think you've all called El Paso City, and you can almost see the dancers out there wanting to stomp that bam, bam, bam as it goes around, right? There is a strong upbeat afterbeat, but the whole thing is they'd be wanting to pick their foot up with the afterbeat. Oh, thank heavens I have a chaparral. Sorry about that, Kenny. This is a strong afterbeat. Pick that foot up. I can't imagine this record not exciting the dancers the minute they hear the first 4 bars of music. Right. Right. Is that right? Now, I don't know who put out a piece of music like that. There's no afterbeat, no forebeat. What were you doing, Daryl? That's disco. We see more and more of that coming into square dancing today. And it's being used very, very effectively. But the one thing that they all have in common is that 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, that bass beat on the foot fall. The afterbeat, the forebeat, what comes besides that bass beat is what's going to change the attitude or the feel of the dance that you're doing. Turn into a stomper or a shuffler or a glider, whatever. Okay?
That particular record was designed for all the younger dancers. That's anybody under 110.
Variety, right? Okay, I said that music could put you into a state of depression. Most... Sit down, Wade. I was about to clean that up. Square dance music, generally speaking, is not designed to do that. You want something that's going to lift the spirits. But songs in the minor keys, generally speaking, have more of a dismal or, oh, how can I say it? Don't mean to be sad. Okay.
He's trying to say soft and laid back feeling, right, Wade?
Soft and laid back. No, I won't put that on. No good. You thought you were going to get a rhythm record, didn't you? That's in the minor keys. It doesn't really sound like a funeral march, but it's not nearly as happy as Something About You Baby I Like, is it? That's the rhythm, right. That's another one in the minor keys. It's not really depressing, but there again, it's not, you know, what you call something that's really going to lift the spirits and get them laughing and giggling either. And I'm not saying that you don't need this type of music. This is variety. This is part of the variety available. But I think that I think you should be aware of the effect that pieces of music like these can have on the dancers. I hope you don't mind if I play another Chinook. I'm going to anyway, right? Okay, a very, very familiar tune. Old-timey, one of the gentlemen said. Everybody knows the melody. Strong upbeat. Pick the foot up. Mark?
We're looking at individual pieces of music right now. Daryl, could after you get through with your individual pieces of music, could we look at programming music?
You certainly can. You certainly can. I just finished looking at individual pieces of music. Yes, I did. Okay, Mark wants to know about programming of music. I'm not really prepared in my notes to total programming, except for the idea that you would want a variety. I think probably, I think what you're asking about is what would you start the dance with? Where would you put these different pieces of music throughout the dance? Help.
I have always, well, let me put it this way, I've never believed in going into a dance, saying, okay, the first tip I do this song, the second tip I do this song, third tip I do. I never felt like you can do that because just like when a person gets sick, if the doctor said, okay, we'll just pump him with penicillin for 30 days, what happens if he gets well in 2? He's got 28 days left. So what I'm saying is that the mood and the feeling of the dance is changing constantly. Even within the tip it's changing. Maybe they're excited at the beginning of the tip and you just knocked them down in the middle, So that singing call, might not even work that you picked out for that tip. You may have to reach right over there and pull another one out just to kind of recover from what you did in your pattern. So I have never been a believer in the philosophy of you program every inch of your dance before you walk in the hall. They may have all just come from a funeral. Likewise, they may have just all come from the circus. Who knows? So, the variety, I think, like Daryl had mentioned, is essential, to have some kind of variety, to be versatile enough to go one way or the other, and to recognize when you need to go one way or the other.
I'd like to say something on that. Most of your caller schools, or the clinics and the teaching callers that I've seen, will tell you should prepare a program. Is that right? I'm asking. Or most of them will tell you should prepare a program. Okay? I think you should have a program, but I also agree with Pat. I have worked for like 2 days on special choreography and picking out the songs that they fit, and I change the choreography. Especially if I'm going to teach something new, a workshop, I've tried to work it in a singing call, if at all possible. Okay, I've worked for 2 days on some real special stuff that I thought was fantastic. And I got there prepared for my workshop, and what I wound up workshopping was flutter wheel and slide through. So I quit spending 2 days. This is personal opinion now. I quit spending 2 days programming. But with the music in mind, personal opinion, I think you should start with something that you're familiar with, and perhaps the dancers are familiar with. Get them into the dance. I like to build a dance. Take the music and build up to something that's really upbeat and really hot and makes them want to bounce off the walls about the third or fourth tip. And then you might let them down easy and build them up again toward the end. That's my personal opinion with the various songs. And a lot of dances have refreshments like in the middle of the thing. I think I hate that. First of all, you get them going real good and they stop and eat for 30 minutes. They're all sitting there with ice cream all over their face and all this. After the refreshments, I like to do a couple of singing calls and let them ease back into the dance and start as if the dance were starting over and build them up to a good high. And I've seen some callers, and you may choose one way or the other, I've seen some callers that like to end a dance on a real soft, smooth singing call. That's good. I use Gary Shoemaker's Gone at Last and try to get them dancing on the ceiling right at the end of it and make them, just leave so happy and wanting to dance some more. That's a personal opinion, and it varies with your crowd, I think. But the point I think Daryl was making, you can use the songs with the minor keys for a laid-back, soft feeling. And then you use these real upbeat things to get them up a little bit higher. And you can use something they're familiar with if you need to make them. You can tell if they need to be made to feel more comfortable. And then if they're just handling everything you've got with no problem, try something exotic or something different for them.
Okay, we've talked about programming singing calls. What about programming patter music?
We didn't talk about it.
Personally, I tend to, I guess you could say, utilize a regular amount of hoedowns. In other words, there's probably, in a 6-month period of time, I'll usually rotate and get some new stuff, but within 6 months, I'll usually settle on about maybe 8 to 10 hoedowns that I really can work, well with and can get the range down, and I know what's coming in next and where that, good fiddle run's going to be, so that you can, kind of punch them a little bit if you're coming up on an Alaman. And I tend to, in the programming of my hoedowns throughout the dance, I tend to start out, first off, I love the traditional sound, so I stick primarily with traditional hoedowns, lots of fiddle, lots of banjo, stuff like that, and I tend to stick with the most traditional hoedown that I've got in my record case for the first tip. because that, to me, that sets the mood. Then you can kind of build around that mood. If you want to go to a mod sound, then you can, halfway through the dance, put on, what was that wild one that you had there? Tony's? I Got the Music in Me. Something like that that'll really, kind of, it's a total change, but I tend to stick primarily with traditional hoedowns.
Right, time is going on, and Pat has a million things he'd like to tell you. I would like to say that music is half of our program, absolutely half of our program. Without the music, we wouldn't have a program, unless we were all as gifted as Matt. Call without the music. I think that probably each of us, if we would take the time to sit down, listen to all of our records, and try to analyze just exactly what there is that's good about them, bad about them, how we can put them to the best use for teaching the hoedowns that have less music in them, more rhythm, a lot of times tend to be better for workshopping classes than some of the ones that are a little fuller. We might get a little better response out of the dancers and a little better use out of the records that we already have. And here's Pat Barbour.
I think he truly was technical, don't you? I'm supposed to talk on how to grow hair, I think, is that right? Oh, okay. And how to grow tall, I guess. Anyway, I was asked to speak a little bit on harmony, and Daryl had more or less wanted me to kind of zero in on the how to hit harmonics on notes that you're not being able to reach possibly in your range. If you can't go higher, you can't go low, whatever the case may be. And I really tend to feel that, first off, there's many of you out there that are much more versed to talk on this than I am, but I'm just going to tell you a few things that I do. Basically, if you can develop a method by which it is easy for you to find the harmony lines to some of the melodies, then you can sure enough use those particular harmonics on notes that that are hard to reach for you. Needless to say, a lot of songs are very similar, and I kind of divide them into two particular sections, one of being the minors that we had talked about a second ago, the minor keys and the major keys. I stand up. I can't stand this. The minor keys, needless to say, I think are really the more difficult to harmonize with, simply because it's not as common as Daryl had said, and it's not really as familiar to us, and it does tend to give, I don't call it a down mood, I call it kind of a mysterious type of sound. Something like that where, it sounds like the Martians are landing. But, it does have a definite advantage, I feel, as well. I think you can really get a surge out of your dancers in the minor keys. The major keys, of course, being the majority of the music I think that's cut nowadays, are in major keys. And I find it much easier to harmonize in the major keys, as well as it's better for the novice, I think, to start, if you're not doing any harmony right now, in the major keys. First off, just a couple of things. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to stop and ask, and I'd love to get some comments from you guys, just like Daryl did there, too. And please forgive me, I've got post-nasal drip. So if I cough anyway. Why should we harmonize? Okay, I think it should be recognized, first off, that harmony is more or less nothing more than icing on the cake. In other words, if the individual up there is calling the tip and you're harmonizing with him, and this is kind of his spot, you do not have, in my opinion, equal billing with this guy on this tip. You're strictly there to help him look good. And I think that is some of the problems that really, come about when people try to harmonize, insofar as each one tries to grab equal billing. You try to sound just as loud as the guy who's doing the melody line, and it destroys the entire effect. I think there's nothing worse than to have, two sounds coming out just booming, blaring loud, because you don't get any kind of benefit out of the pleasant sound that harmony, produces. So I think really and truly the only reason you should want to harmonize is to make the other guy look good. I think there's a definite art to that, and I enjoy that particular art. I enjoy trying to harmonize with folks and trying to, make them look a little better. And, of course, the guys I work with are so good anyway, I just can't. Anyway, that's the reason why you might want to harmonize. Dancer effect. I think it goes without saying that the dancer effect can be varied, If the harmony, as I mentioned, is in the minor keys, I think it tends to give the flavor of mystery, as I mentioned. This can sometimes have a down effect on the dancers, but I think you'll find also that in most songs that are in minor keys, they end on a major key. You know, I mean, it's kind of da-da-da-da-bum. You know, it's kind of like a grand finale, da-da-da, you know, something like that. And with that major key ending, it tends to surge the dancers into an up feeling. It's kind of like they've been, you know, sitting down in this little valley here, and then all of a sudden they end on this major key, and it kind of surges the dancer. So I think it can definitely have a good effect. The songs in the minor keys. If the song is as I mentioned, predominantly in major notes, you know, it's the easiest to harmonize with. I can't emphasize enough, though, there's nothing more discomforting to hear a bad harmony note with, you know, on a record. It's kind of has the same effect as the fingernails on the blackboard sometimes. You know, it just kind of grabs your nerves there. So I would suggest, please do not practice on your dancers. You know, practice at home. And I think they will appreciate it a whole lot more, and I think you'll really come across with a better, you know, impression of your harmony. In other words, you'll give a better impression of your harmony on your dancers there. Should I go high or should I go low? You do high harmony or low harmony? My particular case, I tend more to go high because I'd say my voice range is a blend of a baritone and a tenor, so it's easier for me to hit the high end of a tenor than it is to hit the low end of a baritone. So I tend to kind of move right in that area there, mid-baritone to mid-tenor more or less, and tend to go for the higher notes. It's more comfortable to me to go high than it is to go low. I think when you're working on a particular tune that you would like to learn the harmony on, I think, first off, needless to say, you need to listen to the entire tune, because if there is a wide melody spread in the tune, you know, you may be, if you can imagine, here's the melody right down here, and you're laying the harmony on top, and this all of a sudden takes a tremendous shoot up in range and key that puts, you know, this third above that you're trying to harmonize with possibly out of your range. So, you know, listen to the entire tune and, you know, see if it's going to be comfortable to go high. In cases where it is possibly, you know, not comfortable for you to go that high, what I sometimes tend to do is I'll be going high with him, and as he goes high, I'll go low on a lower register down there and just kind of make a crossover in there somewhere where it's comfortable and it sounds pleasant or whatever. So basically what I'm saying is that most of the harmony I do is just a third step or a fifth step up above what the melody line is. Thanks to Clendenin for giving me that terminology yesterday. I didn't know what you called it, but that's what he calls it, is a third step or fifth step higher than the melody line, or lower as well. So I think that's one thing you can kind of take into consideration when you're trying to harmonize with someone. Should you go higher? Should you go low? Just whatever your particular range capabilities are. Practice, okay? Whoever wrote the old cliche about practice makes perfect, you know, is absolutely correct. There's nothing better than practicing your harmony. And some ideas that I always do, and this is kind of how I practice my harmony. I always like to utilize unproductive time, you know, when you know, you're not doing anything and you can't do anything else, but like, for example, driving a car is when I practice most of my harmony. You flip the radio on and you listen to the songs on the radio and you try to harmonize with the songs on the radio. I think you might agree that most of the records, singing calls coming out today are patterned or the popular tunes. So therefore, and they're usually a period of time, maybe a month or two after the pop tune has hit the radio. Okay, so if you work on the radio harmony with the pop tune, when the singing call comes out, you know, you're that much ahead of the ball game. In other words, it may be in a different key or something, but at least you have the same feel or the same structure of the harmony on the particular pop tune. So that's basically what I do, is I work a whole lot just listening to the radio on the car and singing with it. Of course, your wife sometimes may not be wild about you singing harmony with while she's in the front seat, but you can always put her out on the side of the road. No, I'm teasing, girls. My wife's back there also. Anyway, another good exercise, needless to say, is to take the singing call and just flip it over on the call side. Listen to this guy on the call side and try to harmonize with him. Most of the harmony notes that I get come from the bass notes of the bass guitar. That's where I, you know, get the basic feel or the basic melody of the tune, and then I try to just, you know, maybe slide up or down, you know, until it sounds comfortable or a pleasant sound comes out in harmony with that bass. If you're in harmony with the bass, I don't think you can ever go wrong, because the entire song is going to be in tune with that bass guitar. And I guess possibly because bass is closer to the man's voice, that's why I tend to, hit in that direction there. So you can flip the record over and try that as well. Try harmonizing with the guy on the call side. How to exercise your voice and your mind. It's very easy to listen to a song and start harmonizing with it and reach a point where you can say, I can't reach the high note. I can't get up there. And I think yesterday Arden Hopkins in his session on how to, and just sound like a moo or something where he was going up way high. And it definitely, it surprised me because I thought, I can get just so high and then that's it. But with that falsetto effect, you can really, you can do a tremendous job. So I don't know whether he would agree with this or not because I'm not a voice teacher or anything like that, but I tend to try to push my voice, and and of course I do it not on stage. I try to do it, in the comfort of my private home. But I try to push it and stretch it a little bit more. I kind of feel like those muscles, it's just like any muscle. The more you work it, the better and more control you have on it. And if you stretch it more, then you'll be able to get more out of it. Needless to say, you don't want to get to a scream or anything like that where you're going to hurt your voice. But I think it's good personally, to exercise your voice in that manner and try to get a better sound out. Also, try to think harmony. The harmony notes before you sing them. Really and truly, when you listen to some songs, pop songs particularly, that have professionals harmonizing with the artist on the song, they don't do any slide up or down to the note. Man, they're right on that note. And if you can think, okay, I hear him singing right here, and I'm going to sing up here. You just think, think high, and just spit it out. And sometimes you're maybe just a fraction off, and you can adjust that fraction. But it sounds a whole lot nicer than saying he's singing down here, I'm going to sing up here. You sliding up there, and it sounds sloppy. And it takes a while to get that down, to be able to hit right on that harmony line. But once you do kind of practice it and work on stretching your voice, I think it does become much easier to go right to the harmony line rather than having to slide up or down to find what the harmony note is. Any questions? Great.
Do you have to do harmony with somebody?
Not necessarily. I think, as I had mentioned, if you're having problems reaching a particular note, whether it's just by yourself, whether it's high or low, I think, and harmony is I think it's something that's really just kind of come about in the last, 5 or 6 years or something like that. So it's not, maybe it has been around longer than that and I hadn't known it. I know Ken's a little older than I. No, I'm just teasing. But, and he's been doing it for quite some time. But I know that if you do have the capability of finding harmony in a tune, then you definitely have the capability of reaching a harmonic by yourself on a note that you can't go high on. That's.
In other words, if you hear a singing call that you really like, and it's too high for you, if you really like it, you possibly could take it and work with it and sing a harmony line on the higher notes. You don't have to follow that song all the way up as the melody line goes.
Absolutely. Yeah,
you can hit a harmony line and stay under it and still use the singing call very effectively.
I do have. I want to play a couple of records also. One that he spoke of here that is shown very well last year in Kansas City. For those of y'all who are here, I think on Red Boot, Don Williamson's Country Roads, if I'm not mistaken, they played that for their session, and it showed it perfectly as far as hitting a harmony line. Hang on, just a second, make it right.
While he's getting his record, let me say that a lot of us have trouble hearing the harmony. If you can't hear properly, you're going to have trouble singing it. So if you practice that thing, put on some music, say a call side of a singing call, practice your harmony, but I sure would like to suggest that you record it and listen to it. If you're not, maybe you think you're hearing it properly, but you're not. And if you got one guy singing a melody line and one guy singing a harmony line, and you get in between there somewhere, it's just like chewing on a real sour lemon to those people that's listening out there. It sounds rough. So if you'd like to do some harmony, record yourself and play it back and listen. See how it sounds to you. Just listen to a recording.
And weave the rain.
This is Elmer's Midnight Rodeo, by the way.
Have a good time. Swing your own in a promenade. I'm gonna take.
Did anybody catch him? Did you? Okay, let me play it again. Hang on.
Gonna get on home and swing your man around. Join up hands and circle to the left. Go walking around and do a left alley man weave the rain.
Right now.
You don't need need money to have a good time.
That was the harmonic right there.
Swing your own.
Where he said, you don't need money to have a good time. It's supposed to be, you don't need money. In other words, he went just about a third low or fifth low almost on that. Let's do it one more time.
Have a good. Four ladies promenade, go inside the ring. You're gonna get on home and swing your man around. Join up hands and circle to the left, go walking around and do a left alley man weave the ring. You don't need money to have a good time.
Anybody hear it then? Did you hear it then? Did you hear the harmonic in there now? Okay. Does everybody know what the song's supposed to sound? I mean, what the pop tune sounds like? You know, so it does go high in the pop tune.
Go inside the ring. You're gonna get on home and swing your man around. Join up hands and circle to the left, go walking around and do a left alley man weave the ring.
Well,
you don't need money to have a good time.
See, that high note is what the melody is.
Promenade.
Listen one more time. God, it's early. Whew. Really?
You don't need money.
There it is
Skip
again.
hands and circle to the left, go walking around and do a left alley man weave the ring.
Well,
you don't need money to have a good time.
See how high that is up there?
Swing your
So,
own
you know, essentially what he's doing is he's hitting the harmonic, which is about a fifth lower than what the actual melody line is up there. So that's one that I think is an excellent piece of music, but it's one that definitely, you know, is a very high-keyed tune. So it's kind of hard to get some of the harmony in there. If I may, can I just use this one? Is this okay? Are we running out of time? 5 minutes? Any questions? Any questions before we go? Yeah. Please come up.
Okay. I'm Steve Kickert from Joseph, Oregon. And first of all, I should say that I'm guilty of the thing that bothers me quite frequently. And that is how many of us as callers who do harmony get up and do harmony with someone we've never harmonized with before. And just walk up to the dancers cold without ever having practiced the harmony or done anything in the way of learning to blend with the person that we're singing with. And make those dancers have to listen to us as we practice that song in front of them. We wouldn't do it with a singing call on our own, but we'll walk out there and just, you know, I know the harmony, so I'm going to sing it with you. And I think it takes a lot more practice than just walking out and doing it to the people.
If I may comment on that, it's what I said in the beginning. You know, practice, make sure you know your harmony lines, number one. Second off, if you're going to work with a guy, remember, he's the star on that tip. You ain't trying to take anything away from him. You want to make him sound good. So if you even think that you're going to step on one of his calls with a harmony note or something like that, or take anything away from his show at that particular minute, don't do it. You know, I mean, you know, you can't go wrong with oohs and ahs, ooh, you know, that kind of stuff. That's simple to harmonize or to, you know, to blend with movement-wise or word-wise. But if you're going to, you don't want to make the guy sound bad, you know. So if you think that you might make him sound bad, don't do it. Just don't do it. Yes, sir.
Kenmore, California. As you start singing harmony to a lot of callers, they start to blend in with you instead of you singing along with them. They start to get you, so you mess up a lot of callers by doing the harmony, and therefore a lot of callers don't like you sing along with them. So.
Understand. I was going to say, you know, needless to say, if someone's uncomfortable working harmony or doesn't like to do harmony, you know, don't go up and say, well, hey, I know the harmony of this, get with it. You know, you just stick to the melody and I'll do the rest. Some people can't stay on a melody line when there's harmony being done. They have the tendency to, and believe me, that's a very common thing. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just that, you know, it's very common to move up to the harmony line instead of staying right on your melody line.
We'd like to say thank you very much for Daryl Clendenin and Pat Barbour coming in with us.